All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're heading to, well, I'd say a pretty fascinating corner of the wine world for Friuli-Venezia Giulia up in northeastern Italy. And, you've really outdone yourself this time, gathering all this amazing material. We've got a sommelier's take on the region, its terroirs, the history, the grapes, the winemaking, plus food pairings, what it's like to actually visit, even a peek into the future of the region's wines. So our mission today is, I guess, to sift through all this and pull out those, real key insights that help someone listening really grasp what makes Friuli special.
I think you've summed it up perfectly. We've got a really comprehensive overview here, starting with the fundamentals, like how geography and climate shape everything. Then we delve into centuries of winemaking tradition, it's a long history, and get into the nitty-gritty of subregions, their specific soils, like that famous Fleesh, or Apoca, as the locals call it. Oh, and we can't forget the gravelly riverbeds. They add a whole other dimension.
And of course, we've got to talk about the grapes.
Absolutely. The indigenous varieties, like Friulano and Herbola Gialla, they're really the heart and soul of Friuli. But we'll also see how international varieties, like Pinot Grigio or Sauvignon Blanc, take on a unique character when grown in this region. And, as you mentioned, we'll touch on food pairings, the appeal of enotourism, and even some predictions for the future of viticulture in Friuli. It's going to be quite a journey.
Yeah, no doubt. So let's jump right in, shall we? And I think what strikes me right away is that Friuli, well, it's not just a dot on the map in northeastern Italy. I mean, it's right up against Slovenia and Austria, a real crossroads, geographically speaking. And that, I imagine, has profoundly shaped its wines, wouldn't you say?
You hit the nail on the head. Just think about the Julian Alps looming up there to the north. They're more than just a dramatic backdrop. They act as a natural shield, protecting those precious vineyards from the harsh, cold winds that could sweep down from the north. But maybe even more crucial is their role in creating that big temperature swing between day and night, what we call diurnal temperature variation. That's a key factor for quality in grape growing.
Now, I know we've talked about diurnal variation before, but just to remind folks, why is that daily temperature shift so important?
Well, think of it like this. Those cooler nights allow the grapes to develop really complex aromas and hang on to their acidity, that bright zing, while still reaching perfect ripeness during those warm, sunny days. It's a balancing act that many of the best wine regions rely on. And Friuli benefits hugely from that alpine influence, something you wouldn't necessarily find in regions with a more, consistently warm climate.
Right, right. That makes sense. And then, of course, you have the Adriatic Sea down south. It's almost like the Adriatic's influence works in tandem with the Alps, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. The Adriatic brings a moderating influence to the climate, milder winters, cooler summers, and those gentle breezes coming off the water.
Yeah.
It all contributes to the aromatic complexity we find in Friulian wines. And it can also stretch out the ripening period, giving those flavors time to develop slowly and subtly.
And we can't forget the Isonzo River running right through it all. It's more than just, a water source for the region.
You're right. That Isonzo River Valley is characterized by constant fresh winds, and that's crucial for keeping the vines healthy. And the soils, well, they're alluvial, deposited by the river over time, rich in gravel, which has a big impact on the wine's character. Gravel means excellent drainage and lower fertility, which can stress the vines in a good way, pushing them to produce grapes that are more concentrated, flavorful, and ultimately lead to wines with a vibrant freshness and that distinct minerality that people often associate with Friuli.
So it's really this dynamic interplay of mountain, sea, and river that sets the stage for Friuli's wines. But how far back does the actual winemaking tradition go in this region? It feels like a place with some deep roots historically.
You're spot on. The history here is incredibly rich and layered. We know that winemaking goes back to Roman times at least. And there's even evidence suggesting pre-Roman Celtic traditions of viticulture in the region. Just imagine that centuries of cultivating vines on this very land. And then, as we move forward in time, we can't underestimate the influence of the Venetian Republic. They really had a substantial impact in Friuli, expanding vineyard plantings and, crucially, placing a huge emphasis on quality. After all, they were supplying the discerning palates of Venice. They brought new winemaking techniques and grape varieties with them, really leaving their mark.
It's fascinating to think of a powerful trading hub like Venice, recognizing Friuli not just for quantity, but for the quality of its wines. Are there any specific regulations or practices they implemented that we still see traces of today?
It's hard to pinpoint exact regulations from that era, but the Venetian emphasis on quality almost certainly fostered a culture of careful vineyard management and winemaking in Friuli. Their demand for wines that would appeal to a sophisticated urban market would have encouraged producers to really prioritize practices that led to better, more consistent quality. That early recognition set the stage for Friuli's reputation as a region capable of crafting wines that went beyond, simple everyday drinking.
And then the story continues with the Austro-Hungarian Empire. What impact did they have on the winemaking scene?
Well, the Austro-Hungarians brought their own tastes and traditions. They introduced grape varieties like Riesling and Traminer Aromatico, reflecting that Central European palate. And they, of course, brought with them different winemaking practices, further enriching Friuli's already diverse viticultural landscape. It really underlines that point about Friuli being a cultural crossroads, where each historical period has left its own unique imprint on how wine is made. And then, after World War I, Friuli became part of Italy, bringing all those threads together into what we see today.
So it's really this convergence of geographical and historical influences that leads to the idea of a mosaic of terroir in Friuli. It's not just one big homogeneous wine region, right?
Exactly. Friuli is more like a patchwork of distinct soil types, each lending its own character to the wines.
Hmm.
Take Flish, for example, that blend of marl and sandstone that the locals in the Collio and Colli Orientale hills call opoka. Wines grown in these soils tend to have a certain elegance, a pronounced minerality, a really nice balance of acidity, and they can age surprisingly well, especially the whites. The opoka itself, with its layers of compressed sediment, tends to retain water and release minerals gradually, which adds to that complexity.
Ah, so that gradual release of water and minerals is like a slow, steady supply for the vines.
Precisely. It helps with consistent ripening and can lead to more nuanced flavors in the grapes. Then you've got Aranito, which is primarily sandstone. Wines from these soils are often lighter in body, maybe a bit more intensely aromatic, with softer tannins in the reds, and a really refreshing, zippy acidity in the whites. Sandstone's looser structure means good drainage, but less water retention compared to the marl we were talking about earlier.
So different soil texture, different water holding capacity, different style of wine. Fascinating. And what about Marga?
Marga, well, that's mostly marl. A clay-rich soil. It's known for good water and nutrient retention, which can translate to wines with more structure, good acidity, and a subtle aromatic complexity. The clay can also contribute to a slightly richer texture in the wines. And last but not least, we have Cascalo, the gravelly soils you find down in the Isonzo Plain. Remember those excellent drainage and lower fertility conditions we talked about? They really encourage the vines to produce those intensely aromatic grapes with vibrant acidity and that unmistakable minerality. You can picture the river constantly reshaping the land, leaving behind these free draining deposits.
It's incredible how the ground beneath the vines can have such a profound impact, but are there other factors at play even within these broader soil types?
Oh, absolutely. Within these subregions, you have variations in altitude, which can significantly affect temperature and the speed at which the grapes ripen. The amount of direct sunlight a vineyard receives also plays a crucial role, influencing sugar development and the overall flavor profile of the grapes. And then there's ventilation, how freely the air can circulate through the vineyard. Good airflow helps regulate temperature, reduce humidity, and it can even help minimize the risk of disease. All these microclimates, nestled within the larger terroirs, they add another layer of complexity to Friuli's winemaking landscape.
So we've painted a picture of the land, talked about the history. Now let's dive into the stars of this mosaic, the unique grape varieties that really define Friuli. First up, Friulano, formerly known as Tokai Friulano. It's almost synonymous with the region, wouldn't you say? What is it about this grape that makes it so special?
Friulano is truly emblematic of Friuli. Aromatically, it offers this captivating blend of fresh almonds, delicate white flowers like linden and hawthorn, and a juicy white fruit character, kind of like pear. You might also get subtle hints of herbs. But what really sets it apart is that elegant, slightly bitter almond finish on the palate. It's quite unique.
That bitter almond note, is that something specific to Friulano grown in this region? Or is it a characteristic of the grape itself, no matter where it's planted?
Well, it's definitely a hallmark characteristic often associated with Friulano from Friuli. While the precise chemical compounds responsible are complex and can vary, it's thought that both the grape variety itself and the specific terroir of the region contribute to that unique nuance. Those opoka soils in particular are sometimes linked to that minerally, almost almond-like quality.
And stylistically, Friulano seems pretty versatile, right?
It really is. You can find wonderfully fresh, young Friulanos that are perfect as an aperitif or paired with lighter dishes. But then there are also more structured and age-worthy examples, some of which have been aged in oak, adding layers of complexity and richness. When it comes to food, it's a fantastic partner for things like light fish and seafood, the famous prosciutto di San Daniele, the local cheese specialty frico, and even herb-infused risottos. It really complements a wide range of those classic Friulian flavors.
Next up, we have Ribolla Gialla, another native white grape with a history going back centuries. What can you tell us about its character?
Rhubarb has this wonderfully delicate aroma profile. You get lovely floral notes like acacia and chamomile, along with hints of bright citrus like lemon and tangerine. And then there's this distinct mineral edge, often described as flinty or reminiscent of wet stone. On the palate, it's typically dry and elegant, with a fresh, vibrant acidity, a refined structure, and a long, mineral-driven finish.
I've heard that Ribolla Gialla has been gaining some attention lately for something quite unique, the orange wine style.
You're right. Ribolla Gialla has really become a champion of the orange wine movement in Friuli. Essentially, it involves fermenting the white grapes with their skins for an extended period, which is more similar to how red wines are made. This skin contact extracts tannins, color, and complex flavors, resulting in wines that have more texture, a savory edge, and these fascinating notes of dried fruit and spice. It's quite different from the traditional approach to making white Ribolla Gialla.
So it's a deliberate winemaking choice that can dramatically alter the final character of the wine. How does that impact food pairings? Does it change things significantly?
It really does. The fresher styles of Ribolla Gialla pair beautifully with, more elaborate fish dishes, grilled seafood, and white meats with citrus-based sauces. But those orange wine versions, with their added structure and complexity, can stand up to richer, more intensely flavored dishes, even those with Eastern spices. They also pair well with medium-intensity cheeses. It really showcases the incredible versatility within this one grape variety.
Now let's switch gears to the sweeter side of Friuli with picolet. It has a reputation for being pretty rare and precious. What sets it apart?
Picolet is truly a gem of Friuli. It's a rare white dessert grape that offers this intensely sweet aromatic profile. Imagine honey, candied fruit, dried apricot, even a hint of saffron. And what's really remarkable is that despite all that sweetness, it's beautifully balanced by a naturally high acidity so it never becomes cloying. It's surprisingly full-bodied for a dessert wine and lingers on the palate with a long, complex finish that echoes those dried fruit and spice notes.
And I understand its rarity is partly due to how it's produced.
Exactly. Picolet is almost exclusively made as a late-harvest dessert wine. And often the grapes undergo a further concentration process where they're air-dried after they're harvested. On top of that, the variety itself is known for having naturally low yields, which further contributes to its scarcity and its status as a truly special wine. It's a perfect match for fruit-based desserts like a classic apple tart, intense blue cheeses, or even foie gras, where its sweetness and acidity can cut through the richness.
All right, let's move on to the reds of Friuli. The leading indigenous red grape is Refosco dal Peduncolo Rosso. That's quite a mouthful. What should we expect from this grape?
Refosco dal Peduncolo Rosso, which translates to Refosco with a red stalk, is a truly distinctive red grape. Aromatically, it's a compelling mix. You get dark red fruits like blackberry and plum, often with herbaceous notes reminiscent of tomato leaf, and just a subtle touch of spice. You might even encounter some rustic, earthy undertones. The name itself comes from the fact that the grape stalks actually turn a vibrant red color as they ripen. On the palate, it's typically dry, with firm, though usually well-integrated tannins, a pleasant acidity, and a finish that echoes those dark fruit flavors.
Are there different approaches to making wine with Refosco? Different styles, I mean.
Yes, there are definitely different approaches. You'll find some fresher, younger expressions that emphasize the bright, vibrant fruit character. And then there are versions that are aged in oak, which adds complexity and softens the tannins, giving them good aging potential. When it comes to food pairings, it's surprisingly versatile for a red wine. It works well with lighter meat dishes, pasta with tomato-based sauces, pork, cured meats, medium-intensity cheeses, and it can even handle richer fish preparations.
So Friuli clearly has a strong identity with its native grapes, but it's also a region that embraces international varieties, isn't it? How do those varieties express themselves differently in this unique terroir? Let's start with Pinot Grigio.
That's a great point. While Pinot Grigio is often associated with those lighter, simpler styles, in Friuli, it often shows a much greater degree of complexity, structure, and minerality. This is largely due to the region's unique terroir, those marl, sandstone, and limestone soils, and a temperate climate with its significant diurnal temperature swings. Aromatically, you'll often find notes of white fruits like apple and pear, along with a distinct citrus element and that pronounced minerality that we've been talking about. And interestingly, some Friuli and Pinot Grigios have shown the potential to age, developing really intriguing honeyed and dried fruit notes over time. It's still very versatile for food pairing, working well with seafood, grilled fish, poultry, fresh cheeses, but often with a bit more depth and character than you might expect from Pinot Grigio grown elsewhere.
It really shows how terroir can shape a familiar grape into something quite unique. What about Sauvignon Blanc? How does it fare in Friuli?
Sauvignon Blanc in Friuli also offers a diverse range of expressions, and a lot of that comes down to the specific microclimates and soils within the region. In areas with marl soils, like some parts of the Collio, you might find a more pronounced aromatic intensity, with those classic Sauvignon Blanc notes of cut grass, asparagus, grapefruit, passion fruit, even tropical notes in some cases. In the alluvial soils of the Isonzo, those tropical fruit notes might be even more pronounced. But regardless of the soil type, you almost always find a vibrant acidity and a distinct minerality. Stylistically, you'll encounter everything from those lean, incredibly refreshing versions to more complex and structured wines that have spent some time in oak. It really highlights the nuanced impact of Friuli's various terroirs.
And what about Chardonnay? How does that global variety adapt to Friuli's conditions?
Chardonnay in Friuli is remarkably adaptable, producing styles that range from fresh and mineral-driven to those richer, more complex wines that have seen some oak influence. Again, that cooler climate and diverse range of soils play a significant role. In the younger styles, you often get aromas of citrus and white fruits. Those that have been fermented or aged in oak can develop notes of vanilla, spice, and toast. And it's worth mentioning that Chardonnay is also a key player in the production of high-quality, traditional method sparkling wines in Friuli, which further demonstrates its versatility in this region.
Finally, let's talk about Merlot and Cabernet Franc, two classic Bordeaux varieties that seem to be doing quite well in Friuli.
Yes, Merlot and Cabernet Franc have definitely found a welcoming home in Friuli. The region's mild climate and clay limestone soils seem to suit them perfectly. Merlot here often exhibits soft, approachable tannins, ripe aromas of red and black fruits, and those appealing notes of spice and herbs, all supported by a balanced structure. Cabernet Franc, on the other hand, tends to be more elegant and aromatic, with fresh red fruit notes, those characteristic herbaceous undertones, a touch of spice, vibrant acidity, fine tannins, and really good aging potential. You'll find both of them bottled as single varietal wines, allowing their individual characteristics to shine, as well as in blends, where they complement each other beautifully. And they pair well with a range of dishes, red meats, richer pasta dishes, flavorful cured cheeses. It speaks to Friuli's favorable growing conditions that these international varieties can not only thrive, but also produce wines of real quality and distinction.
Wow, so we've covered a lot of ground here. We've explored this incredible diversity of terroirs and both the native and international grape varieties that call Friuli-Venezia Giulia home. It's really remarkable. For someone just starting to delve into the wines of this region, what do you think is the most compelling aspect to explore further? What really sets Friuli apart?
Well, considering Friuli's unique history as a cultural crossroads and the resulting diversity in its grape varieties and winemaking styles, I think the most compelling aspect to explore further is how seamlessly it blends tradition with innovation. You have those ancient indigenous grapes being crafted into both classic styles and these cutting-edge orange wines. At the same time, you see international varieties that have taken root here and develop a distinct regional identity. This dynamic interplay makes Friuli a fascinating case study in how a wine region can honor its past while embracing new possibilities, constantly pushing the boundaries.
That was a truly enlightening deep dive into the captivating world of Friuli-Venezia Giulia wines, tailored just for you. We've journeyed through its rich history, explored its incredibly diverse lands, and virtually tasted its unique grapes and the winemaking styles that make this region so special. We hope this has provided you with a solid foundation and sparked a deeper curiosity to learn even more about this remarkable corner of the wine world. Remember, the world of wine is vast and constantly evolving, and Friuli-Venezia Giulia is a region brimming with character and exceptional quality, waiting to be discovered. Until our next deep dive, keep exploring.